Hey, welcome to the 176th episode of Just Shoot It, a podcast about filmmaking, screenwriting, and directing. This episode is brought to you by patrons Jason Apple and Tim Johnson. I'm Matt Enlow.
And I'm Oren Kaplan, and today we have Sam Reich back on the show. Matt's old coworker at College Humor. Sam is still there, and he's talking to us about their new streaming service, Dropout, and kind of what it's like going from having TV shows on TV to doing digital shows and owning the platform. And we kind of just get into like all things show and like what we even want out of life.
Yeah. You know, Sam came on the show back on episode 44. We looked it up. And back then, you know, I think we were all kind of still in the trenches of making funny videos for the internet and then also turning those videos into television properties. And that was kind of the name of the game back then. And I think that we've all had a chance to grow and learn and try different things. And so it was really wonderful to talk to Sam, having all this history, knowing him pretty well, working together so many times, to really take a step back and say, oh, well, this is what's changed about the way that being a funny filmmaker in Los Angeles, how that's different now, right? And also, you know, what we want, how you define what success is for yourself and what success for your career is, really. So it was a good, like, deep, heartfelt conversation about being professionally funny as a filmmaker.
Yeah. And Sam is also, uniquely to this podcast, one of the people that has hired like half of the people that have been on our podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a true champion of filmmakers and continues to search out great creators.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, before we chat with Sam, you want to catch up a little bit?
Let's do it. Oren, before we hop into chatting with Sam, I'm dying to know, what have you been working on lately?
Well, I've been in development. I just applied to a competition, which is one of those things that feels like you do when you first move to LA and then you stop doing. But my manager sent it to me and he was like, hey, you should apply to this. And I thought, why not? So I've teamed up with another filmmaker, Sunny, and it was a pretty in-depth application. We had to write an essay, bios. We had to make like a 10-page lookbook for our project, send in a script. And it was kind of fun. And it's one of those things that like kind of forces you to come up with a show. And if we don't get in to this program, we'll still have it to pitch around in other places. So that's been kind of fun. And it's just a reminder that like, no matter how long you've been doing these things, it's always good to kind of keep like meeting new people and trying to find new avenues into filmmaking.
Yeah. Have you ever done grants or anything like that?
I've never done grants.
Because it's a similar process. And I think the nice thing about it is that it asks you questions that you will be asked eventually, but maybe someone hasn't verbalized them to you yet. And it forces you to come up with an awesome answer. So it's like, at the very least, even if nothing comes from this program, you have a better answer. You have a thoughtful answer for how to describe your show a couple different ways.
Yeah. So this program is called Disney Launchpad, which unfortunately by the time this episode comes out will be not open for applications anymore, since the application is due tomorrow on the day we're recording it. But if you even just go and check it out and see what they ask you, it's like a great summary of things you should know about your show before you pitch them. For example, why are you uniquely capable of telling the story?
Yeah. And that'll be a question that you'll see in grants or other incubators. I think it's, you know, though it sounds like this is the last opportunity for Disney Launchpad this year or whatever their term is, there are a ton of other grants and opportunities for people, like obviously Sundance Labs and all that stuff. And I'm sure some great website has profiled all of them.
Yeah. The other thing is I'm working on another project also for Disney, and it's more in the commercial scope. And it's funny. The producer called me this morning and he said, hey, we need to get on the phone with everyone tomorrow morning from Disney, and they're a little worried about the locations. You need to basically talk them off the ledge and tell them why the location that we have is going to work. Now, I had not seen the script. When he called me, I did not know what we were shooting, and I did not know what the location was. But I thought it's interesting. A lot of times, as the director, your job is to sell an idea that's not yours.
That's maybe not yours. Yeah.
And then I read the scripts, and I was like, yeah, I see why they're concerned. And I would love to find a better solution than what we have right now.
Do you feel like they're kind of asking you to solve a problem that is not really your responsibility? Like, could you be like, you know what? They're right. Let's find something new.
I can. The reason the production company and the producer specifically wanted me to sell them on this answer is because from a budget and scheduling standpoint, it's like by far the best answer.
Yeah, producer reasons. It's
pretty much, using a location that's right next to, literally in the same building as the other location we need to shoot at that day. So, I'm all in favor of like maximizing shoot time.
Sure.
But at what expense? So I think my strategy when I get on the phone with everyone tomorrow, and again, the context of this is like at any point they could fire me if they don't feel like if Disney thinks I'm the wrong person, or if the production company thinks I'm not pushing things in the doable direction. So my job is to make Disney feel like they're listened to, make the production company feel like they're listened to, but come up with an answer that makes the project as good as it can be while also taking into account the schedule and the budget and all that stuff. So it's like, as a director, especially in the commercial world, maybe even exclusively in the commercial world, like a huge part of your job is a huge challenge of your job is to make everyone happy while serving the project. Have you been in those situations before?
Yeah, plenty of times. And I think you and I are both pretty well suited to do that. I think it comes naturally. I think there's like a common instinct in directors to be like, good boys and girls, like people pleasers a little bit. And I think we're constantly both trying to figure out how to not make that the priority in quite the same way. Without being difficult. We're both nice guys. You don't want to be like a pain in or sell somebody out, but also like I constantly am trying to think, do I want to do this because it's smart for production and that makes my life easier and therefore the product better ultimately? Or is it just me trying to play nice and at least know one way or the other? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, so in this situation where we're talking about, what's the perfect location for production versus the perfect location for creative, I think maybe beginning directing Oren would think like, well, I can either agree with them and the producers and everyone will like me and I'll sell through the idea, or I'll disagree with them and I'll throw them under the bus and make them look bad and say like, well, they're the bad ones, not me. Right. But the more I've done this, the more I've realized that like literally probably one of the, an answer that might seem not confident, but actually is confident is saying like, look, I hear your concerns and I totally agree with them. I think we should scout and try to find a solution that works for us together. The reality is our worst case scenario is we go with what the producers are saying and we'll still make it awesome. We'll shoot in this hotel room. We'll make it look like a house or whatever. Our best case scenario is we'll find something that looks really exactly like a house. That has depth and windows and lets us move around a little bit. That is, we'll work with the AD to find out that it's doable at the same day that we're doing these other shots and with a small company move. So I think that's my strategy for tomorrow is like try to say everyone is right and we're going to find something that works for everyone. So yeah. And I think my instinct used to be like, well, that doesn't sound confident. That sounds like I don't know the answer, but that's the truth, Sure. So let's work together to find an answer is typically the best move you as a director can make, I think.
Agreed.
Unless you're Stanley Kubrick and then you're just like, I need that fucking red door apartment in Manhattan. You better find it for me.
Do it again. Awesome, man. Well, can't wait to hear how the spots turn out, see how they look. Before we hop into our conversation with Sam, though, we have a little bit of housekeeping.
Yes. Number one, we have a Patreon. Check it out. Patreon.com/JustShootItPod. It's a place that you can help support the podcast. If you feel like you get anything out of it and want to help us and tell us that you want us to keep making it, check it out. You can give us $1 a month. If you give us $10 a month, even if it was for only 1 month, we will send you a thank you gift, which is a Just Shoot It podcast hat, which people have been loving. It protects you from the sun, and it looks cool. And
Yeah, we just sold out of our first batch, so we're ordering more. They're on their way.
Yeah.
They'll probably, by the time this episode comes out, they'll be there.
Yeah. I'm going to pull a Craig Mazin and say that if you spend $10 and we send you the hat, we actually lose a tiny bit of money on it.
That is true.
But we are excited because it's like, people are liking the show. So that's cool. And that's what Patreon does. It helps us with spreading the word, helps us know that people are listening, and also helps us with planning live events.
Yeah, so patreon.com/justshootitpod. Thanks, everyone.
Cool. And speaking of supporting us, here's a word from our sponsor. Before we get to the rest of our show, we wanted to talk to Zach Lipovsky for a second. He's a filmmaker that created an app called Shot Lister, and he's with us right now. And we're going to talk a little bit about the app. One of the cool things about it is it lets you color code your shots throughout the day as you're shooting, red or green, to indicate what you've already finished and kind of give you a bird's eye view of the project. Can you tell us a little bit more about the color coding and why you think it's a helpful feature?
Yeah, I mean, basically, when you build your shot list, you can then build sort of a shooting schedule where you put in all the shots you want to get in the order and how long you estimate each one's going to take. And hopefully that adds up to 12 hours if you're doing a 12-hour day or whatever. And then when you're actually shooting, it goes into something called live mode, where it knows what time it is. It knows how many shots you've actually done already, and it can add up for you all the shots that are left and say, geez, there's about 45 minutes more shots here than you have time to do. And it tells you you're 45 minutes behind. And when that's the case, the whole app glows red. And the crew can see that when it's in your hand. And
Does it start beeping?
it doesn't beep. We've definitely been requested, can it glow yellow when we're just a little bit behind? Does it have to really go red? And often, 90% of the time it's glowing red. If anyone's been on set, they know.
Yeah. Is there like a shock collar accessory that you guys sell in case it's in the red for too long?
We've had a lot of requests for that, yeah, but unfortunately, PETA hasn't let us do that. But people start knowing. They say, "Are we in the green? Are we in the red?" And it can be really helpful because you can then readjust all the shots, and all your estimates based on how things have changed, and then get it back on schedule. So you can move the important stuff, up in the shot list, and maybe get rid of or combine shots that you actually realized you don't need, because often when you're shooting a scene, you realize you don't need that coverage, or a second unit can get those close-ups later. And then you can get the schedule back to green. Basically, usually you do that at lunch when you're in a mad panic, and then sync it with the whole crew and show them the new plan. So the color coding ends up being really helpful for that.
I have an idea for a feature. It's called time decoy mode, and it just always basically puts you half an hour behind so that you hopefully finish on time.
Well, you definitely don't want to let the crew know that you're an hour ahead of schedule, because then they all start relaxing.
That's really why you need the yellow mode. It's not for red. It's for when you're like green-ish, basically.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a healthy energy that comes from being in the red. It really kicks your butt. You don't want to be too calm.
That's awesome. I wanted to get it, but I can't afford it at this point. I was just wondering, is there like some free way that I could get it?
Yes. For any people out there, we're actually going to give away the app to anyone who emails justshootitpod@shotlister.com. We're giving away 50 codes a month, every month, forever. So if you need a free copy, just email justshootitpod@shotlister.com and we'll send you one.
So every month forever.
Yeah, as long as this podcast is listenable by human beings.
Well, that's arguable at this point anyways.
And Zach, what should listeners that want a free copy of Shotlister write to you in that email? Just a blank email?
They could put what platform they want, because we have Mac OS, iOS, Android. So let us know which one of those you want. And then, assuming we haven't given away 50 that month, we'll send you a free code. But then you can always email the month after that.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, thanks so much. We are excited to check it out. And to our listeners, if you do get a free copy of it, please email us at justshootitpod@gmail.com and let us know what you think. And if you have any feature recommendations, let me know, and I will tell you how cool I think they are.
Yeah.
If you are listening to this podcast, even months from now, even years from now, email justshootitpod@shotlister.com for your free copy of Shotlister. Great. Without further ado, let's hop into our conversation with Sam.
Cool. We're here with Sam Reich.
Hey, Sam.
Hello.
Welcome back, buddy.
Thanks,
Do you
guys.
prefer Reich or Reich?
Reich.
Even though you spell it with an E.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I inherited the name, so I just pronounce it how I was told.
And do you ever put an E on the end of it just to make it easier for
Just
people?
for fun. I try not to make my last name any more complicated than it already is for people. I get Reich most often. I get
Right.
Rich sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which strikes me as an equal stab in the dark.
No,
Yeah.
that's rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe
like
if you're
Reich.
just reading it very quickly and you just miss a letter,
Yes.
then Rich makes sense to me.
Totally. That form of dyslexia where you just don't read certain letters.
Laziness is what that's called.
I have a friend named Ken Fuhrer.
That's what I've got.
If you guys got married, your name would be Fuhrer Reich.
Our
Reich.
hyphen name?
Yeah. Reich.
Yes.
Reich Fuhrer.
Yes. Let us not have
Imagine-
a baby and name it third.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, this is an honest question, but when two men get married, do they combine
Hyphenate
their
the last names?
Yeah. I mean, obviously they can do whatever they want, but
I think
think
it's
that's
that. I
actually
think it's
the answer.
exactly that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but whose last name first, or do you use your last name first and then your partner's?
Well,
your
it's a
spouse's?
good, like, this is irrelevant to this podcast, but would you prefer like a first or a last name and a hyphen last name situation? Like, I could see you going either way, like if you wanted prominence.
If it were me, honestly, I would just think about what sounds easiest. What's like a
Oh.
rounder aesthetic sound, you know?
That's a
Yeah.
director right there.
Sure,
ladies
that's
and
true.
gentlemen.
Yeah.
Pull-
My brother hyphenated his last name, and I think he went Blanco Enlo, and I think traditionally, and my parents were like, Enlo should go first if you're going to hyphenate. You're the man. And he was like, it sounds better. It's fine.
But the whole point of hyphenating is you're not like it's
he's
because
like,
you're not the.
it's
It's
fine.
not about being the man.
yeah, we're just a couple now. Blanco Enlo sounds better than Enlo Blanco.
Sure.
I think they should have gone with Blonde
Yeah,
personally.
that's true.
My niece is Reich Sharp.
That's nice.
Ray Sharp.
Yeah.
That's good.
It's got that like mutual sort of sound in the middle, whereas Sharp Reich sounds like a direction.
Yeah.
Oh
That's,
yeah. Can
yeah.
you turn Sharp
yeah,
Ray?
it's a sharp right.
Yeah, I love Wilkheim. It's one of
Yeah.
my-
That's
Oh
pretty
my
good.
favorite
god!
versions.
How freaking cool is that?
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, he didn't make it up. Mayor Villaraigosa made it up. Okay.
Is that true?
Yeah, his name was Mr. Villar, and his wife's name was Miss Ragosa. They got married. He became Mayor Villaraigosa. Then they got divorced, but he was already
He's
mayor,
like,
so
this is too good.
had to keep his stage name.
Yeah.
Sure. I would straight up consider taking my wife's last name if I hadn't already launched a career by the time I was her husband.
What a perfect segue. So you've launched your career, Sam. How's it going?
That's a truly lazy segue.
I think it comes back. It's full circle, actually. I think it's so ham-fisted that it's clever again.
It's
I
great.
like it.
It's great.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. I was actually impressed by how lazy it was. I'm fine. Thanks for asking.
So, Sam, we had you on the show back on episode 44.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what it was?
I just looked it up.
How
What
many
episode are
would
you on now?
Can you guess? No,
Okay,
knowing that we do one a week.
And you've done it consistently?
Now. Yeah. I probably in the time in between when we recorded with you and now.
Probably pretty consistently.
Mostly consistent.
This is like
Yeah.
an interview
Okay.
question at Microsoft.
Yeah.
See, I had said in my mind it had been a year, which means it's been like 2.5.
Mhm.
I'm going to say that we're in between. I think we're in the 150 to 200 zone.
That is a very good guess.
Yeah, that's exactly right. What are we?
176.
Wow. Guys, congratulations.
Hey, thanks, man.
Oh yeah,
September 16th, 2016.
oh wow.
Oh,
That was pre-
Wow.
That was in the Obama era.
Oh, man.
That's crazy.
That was
God.
we were all preparing for the Hillary era.
It's really rough to listen to those episodes, actually, because we do a lot of our catch up and we're both like spiraling. I think there's
Yes.
a couple episodes where like you can hear it in our voices of like, what's going to happen?
Oh,
man?
I had a straight up panic attack.
Yeah. Well, and you know what's funny? I tell this story all the time. The thing that made me realize that Trump was going to get elected is that I did some videos for you guys I did like an Obama impersonator, like if he said what Trump says.
Oh, I don't like where this is going.
And a handful, like an Ivanka PSA style video, a couple other things that I thought were really good. I was really proud of them. We're all doing our part,
Yeah.
And I started reading the comments, and I was like, oh, this audience that I thought I knew.
Yeah.
Like, I'd been making videos for you guys for like
Yes.
a while at this point. Like, and it was something I was really proud of and passionate about. And then I was like, oh, not everyone sees the world the way I do. And it was the most intimate and largest sample size, right? Because those videos were getting, 500,000, a couple million views,
Yeah.
And
Not to put any numbers on it, Sam.
Some numbers are public.
Sure.
are
YouTube
kosher.
is changing that, actually. I think they're kind
No.
of bummed on it. Yeah, because they didn't
Really?
want it to be a thing.
What, the view count?
Mhm.
They didn't want it to be a thing in 2006? What do you mean?
Yeah, well, like now it's such a huge metric for whether or not a video is
Huh.
I know that
popular or
Instagram
good or
is
yeah.
not going to show how many likes or something, or they'll show
Oh,
like
interesting.
approximate
What?
number of likes. Yeah, I think they were, because people were just gaming the system. Like I think at some point, like everyone is hiring like a click farm in India to get views on
Right,
their things, and it becomes
Weird.
not an accurate measurement of anything. But people are spending so much money on it.
Yeah.
On YouTube, I mean, there's always a latest thing that you should be optimizing for.
Right,
And
right.
now it's watch time.
Right.
More so than, and brand safety. More so than anything else.
What's brand safety?
Meaning, don't be controversial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting.
Like, but can you? What's controversial? Like that?
Great
It's
question.
controversial. What's controversial? Right? Like,
Well, YouTube is very vague about this, but it's a broad definition, and it can stem from, worst case scenario where someone's like doing drugs to something more innocent like cursing, all the way up to a kind of a premise which scares me, which is a video is very political. And then you get into the definition of like, well, what's political? But the reason is obviously brands don't want to put their videos, their advertisements next to these videos. And if you're
Sure.
a brand, you could understand, you're Coca-Cola, you don't want
Right.
party affiliation.
And there, I think, were probably some big instances where brands were up against videos they really, really didn't want to be a part of, right? So I think there's a difference between like a comedy video that leans one way or the other and like, propaganda or,
Yes.
hate speech, like I think that they were running into those sorts of problems as,
Yes.
the elections were
well,
happening.
that's why
right?
Disney fired the number one YouTuber on the planet, right? PewDiePie, because he made a joke that
Sure.
was controversial. But
Sure.
I guess to me, what's funny is like, obviously, someone's saying something very racist and negative and like inciting violence in some ways, like clearly controversial. But is somebody being like super pro-choice also controversial?
Well, that's exactly the rub, right? Like we, as I want to say, probably like progressive and also like rational people would recognize the distinction between, for instance, like making an argument in support of Nazism and making an argument in support of feminism. But
Right.
I'm not sure that YouTube does well all of the time.
Yeah, sure. Talk about a good segue, Sam.
Mm-hmm.
Because you, since we last spoke, launched a new streaming series or streaming platform. Pardon me.
Streaming platform.
You're
called
taking the
Dropout,
power
right?
out of YouTube and putting it in your own
And
company.
you guys, your launch video did make the point, like, hey, we don't want to have to think about this stuff. We just want to make what's funny. Basically.
Sure.
So was all of this kind of like YouTube rebalancing part of that thought process?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was, and then it was also sort of this broader kind of thing, which is, look, when you're making content, often you're handing the keys over to someone else, and you could maintain ownership over the car. Maybe you have a key, but someone else has the override function. And if you are making videos for YouTube, that's YouTube. And YouTube has its own set of its own constantly moving target, which is very, very hard to keep up with as a content creator. There have been a ton of videos made about this that are really, really great on YouTube. And I, could speak more to it, but
You ever watch Matt Pat videos, the game theorist?
yes, I have
the best.
before.
Like
Yeah.
he's like a genius and was just like a marketing kid
Yeah.
at Big Frame. So like when I was making Squaresville, he'd be like, "Hey, you need to, do these things," and I'd be like, "It's fine, dude." And he'd be like, "Hey, watch this," and he just launched a channel that's
Totally.
huge. But every once in a while, he mostly does like comedy videos about video games. But
Yes.
once or twice a year, we'll do like the state of YouTube sort of
Yes.
algorithm
That's
breakdown.
right.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, totally. YouTube creators love the topic of what it is to be a YouTube content creator.
Right.
But then the same is true of networks, TV networks, right? You're handing the keys over to them. That's its sort of like own loss of agency. This is going to sound very bleak, but maybe there's a positive punchline that I can round this out to. And then the third is like advertisers. Funny thing about advertisers is that's who YouTube is really playing for, and that's who the networks are playing for.
Sure.
It's their set of standards.
Right. They're the people paying for everything.
Right. So if you go direct to consumer and you let your audience pay for the product, it stands to reason that you would be at the very least taking out the middle person, right?
Right.
And your relationship with your audience would allow it to exist more purely
Right.
than it does in either of these systems where there are all these in-betweeners.
Right. That's why someone like HBO can make things that are controversial.
Right.
Although, I don't know that their stuff is that controversial. I mean, everyone was pissed off about the ending of Game of Thrones, but...
Well, I think if you're HBO, it allows you to afford to take certain kinds of risks.
Sure.
Meaning, we're going to do something and it's 8 parts and then it's over. Or we're going to do, like a one-off, like a movie, or we're going to do,
But they did televise like Pod Save America, which is like a decidedly leftist podcast, right?
Sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I wonder if like that would seem controversial in some circles.
Sure. Or you can make the most expensive television show ever made.
Right.
Like these are decisions you can make if you're holding all of the power.
Right. Not like, well, what does Coca-Cola think about this dragon show?
Sure. Or we'd like to do 8 episodes of this, but like then the advertisers are going to learn about it the moment it's over.
Right.
So what's the point?
Does HBO ever release their numbers? Like, do we know? I mean, I think it's a known fact that like Game of Thrones was the most pirated show of all time.
I think they've got Nielsen numbers.
They do.
Right. Yeah. I mean, back in the day when I used to sit in like ratings meetings, you would watch the people, like the analytics people spin things to be like, hey, we were the number 1 on Wednesday night in our guys, which is 18 to 34, blah, 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 like on the West Coast, who also had TV on, and our lead-in was perfect,
We were number 1 with Mormons.
Yeah. And I'd be like, these Big Bang Theory reruns seem to be beating us every
They're like, number 1 new show.
Yeah, that actually is exactly the sort of logic they would use.
Yes.
I mean, like, oh, those old, basically free shows?
Yeah. And then they can insert it into their advertising.
Yeah, exactly.
So how long has Dropout been open to the public?
It's been around since October. We've been working on it since late 2017, I want to say. Basically, we had come out to LA with 25 members of the College Humor video team. We had started to do TV. Adam Ruins Everything was probably like the biggest success for us in that space. And then at a certain point, our parent company turned around and said, well, this is all well and good, but you're giving away the product. And we were. I mean, we were selling intellectual property. Like that's what the business of television kind of is.
But at a profit, right?
Sure. Yes, you make money by doing it. But if you're in the business of business, like if you are building a business,
if you're Barry Diller,
for instance, let's just say you're Barry Diller, then the margins on this business, meaning like the amount of money you're making per giving away of intellectual property, are not all that handsome. I mean, really, a production company, that's what we were, a production company, doesn't typically make a ton of money unless you get very big and have a lot of leverage.
Like very, very big.
Yes.
But there's like a difference between like production services, like the people are actually making the show, like hiring the camera crew and editing it, and the people that created and are writing the show, right? Or is that not
There
so?
is a small distinction, probably not as much as you would think, because who we were is like, yeah, we were the owners of the intellectual property. We shared some of that ownership with the creators of the show, but we didn't always. Like, we worked with creators who came to us with ideas, in which case we really were just production services. And we were going to the networks and trying to pitch ourselves as like the production company. Like, we endorsed this show, but it wasn't our show.
I went up to Silicon Valley to do some like fundraising about a year ago. And I met with a guy who like is invested in a couple hundred, maybe 1,000 companies. And he was, he does all right. He's like pretty rich, basically. And he's an old friend of my wife's from high school. And so he was like, I'm going to, in that sort of like Silicon Valley, like, I'm just going to be brutally honest with you and not understand how this could be terrible. I'm going to draw you a chart and I'm going to show you why I'm never going to invest in a movie because that's idiotic. And he was like, okay, like what's the best case scenario on this movie? Like, what's the most money it could possibly make? We were like, I don't know, like Sundance, like, just sold something for, like, someone just sold something for like 15 million, something like that. And he was like, okay, great. And he throws it up on the chart and he's like, I'm invested in X number of companies right now. And if one of them makes the same sort of money that like Twitter does, and they all have the potential to do that, and then he just like drew basically a hockey stick for the graph. He's like, this is how much, like, the movies they weren't even on the same scale of chart.
Totally.
The sort of money that you're looking to make if you're, in the business of business, basically. Yeah. Right. Totally. So like, even great margins on a television show compared to starting, I don't know, Tinder.
Yes, terrific. For instance, like Tinder has had a kind of like an astronomical success for our parent company.
Right, and I should say Tinder is owned by IAC as well.
Yes,
and literally, you watched the building across the street just kind of
turn into Tinder.
Turn into Tinder.
Yeah, absolutely. Now they're taking over our building.
Oh, cool.
As well. They're on floor 3 of our building. I think it's just a matter of.
They should have. If you walk in through like the left door, you're not single. If you walk in through the right door, you're single. You guys can use that if you want. So as a production company, I'm curious, I guess, is the move, do you basically just build in a production company fee, like 10% of the budget or something? And
pretty much.
That's what you make, and there's no upside?
You can, if you have leverage, you can hold on to some back-end participation, which is meaningful. It could even be participation in international sales of the show, which our company, not really us, but the company that we belonged to, Electus, had some of that leverage. And so we held onto some international participation. But if you're starting out as a production company, there's no way that you could leverage that. And even we, with certain networks, weren't able to get it because they were cracking down so much on these privileges.
And what about, would you be able to sell your own advertising or anything like that? Like,
I mean, maybe if you were like really, really clever, sure, like branded content, right? That's sort of built into the show. You see Conan does a certain amount of that.
Right.
We've had some opportunities with Adam Ruins Everything to do that, but it's very tricky with that show.
Yeah, it's like, what if you ruin Coca-Cola? Oh, wait, we don't want you to do that.
Sugar is the devil in killing you. And by the way, Mountain Dew.
You know. Also, like, I think when you've got a host his persona is to be scrupulous and, be guarded about that stuff, I think it's especially hard for him to be selling something to an audience.
Totally.
Like, it kind of validates the show, basically.
Totally. Which was that was very much our opinion too. And, I'm proud to have made that kind of a show.
Sure.
It just goes to show you that, like, art and capitalism sometimes are clashy cousins.
Sure.
You can just put a pair of cool Nikes on his feet.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Have him smoke a jewel. Wear AirPods.
Yeah. Well, cool. So what's the...
So the second half of that was that around the same time that those conversations were happening, I was going through this, like, vulnerable moment in my TV career where it was kind of less fun than it had ever been before. We had had the success of Adam and a couple of other shows make it to air, and we were under pressure to do more. And we had a pilot that I just loved. I mean, I think it was the best thing we made.
Are you allowed to tell us what it was?
Yeah, I think it's fine. Enough time has gone on now. But it was directed by Paul Briganti, and it starred John Gabris and Betsy Sodero as a brother and sister duo.
I mean, yeah.
And it was unbelievably funny.
Yeah.
And the script was at Comedy Central, and Comedy Central passed on it. And that's when we got it, because it went to MTV, and MTV said, we want to make it. Who's the production company? We came aboard. We made the pilot. MTV was like, we love this, but it feels too Comedy Central. And then it went back to Comedy Central, and Comedy Central said, we really like it too.
And they're owned by the same company.
Yes, they're both owned by Viacom.
Yeah, so you went literally, you got in the elevator and went back down to Comedy Central.
Essentially. Yeah, essentially. And they were like, we love this, but it feels too MTV.
And who wrote this? Like, where did you guys get the script from?
It was written by Dan Greger and Doug Mand. Like, phenomenal writers, if you don't know them.
Are they employees of College Humor?
No, they so they did How I Met Your Mother, and then they've done Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and then they did a very funny movie called Most Likely to Murder with Adam Pally and Rachel Bloom, and now they're like they're on like so many cool movies now. Awesome writing duo.
Awesome.
And we could have held them back.
Wait, and how did they get to you?
They could have been making peanuts for Comedy Central.
I've had a relationship with Dan for a long time. And we were just like one of the production companies in consideration for this job. 3 Arts and them actually interviewed us.
Oh, interesting.
Because 3 Arts was another producer on it. And it was just so, like, it came together so well. It was so funny. And then it didn't get made. And I was like, is this my future? Like,
sure.
Is my future creating, like, is my best work going to be work that nobody gets to see?
Right.
Right.
And around the same time,
are you going to start tweaking your work just to get it on
Yeah.
TV
Do you
as
wanna
opposed
play-
to being like what you're most excited about?
Yeah, there's
Totally.
that game of second guessing yourself. Well, maybe we'll like this, because Betsy Sodero and Gabris are so funny.
so fun. I mean,
So
epically
like
funny.
like,
Betsy just did a role for us in a show that we just released for the platform. And, you know, she's a classic level talent, like the kind of talent that, like, I think Betsy will be remembered 50 years from now.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And I think it's just kind of had, and this is maybe true for Gabris a little bit as well, of just like getting cast in the wrong thing. You know, like she had a network sitcom that she was a lead on that just was a little too broad. And, you know, like just kind of, you end up having a little bit of bad luck. And so America doesn't know you, but like will pop and will be so famous someday. So it feels like, all of which is to say, not just that I'm a fan, but like that this feels like a safe bet.
Sure.
Like if you said to me, hey, Paul's going to do this show with these two people as the lead, I'd be like, great.
Sure.
Have fun making that TV show for 5 years.
Yes. Like talent you want to invest in.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then, so IAC was essentially offering us a ticket to turn inwards at the same time. And, you know, now with Dropout, it's like we're making
like
shows.
saying you be the network?
Essentially, you be the production company, you be the development house, you be the production company, and you be the network.
And you get to choose what you greenlight.
Yeah, exactly. And
you guys will take projects from outside of
we
College
haven't
Humor, right?
so far, which is kind of nuts. And you figure if this thing is successful, that at one point we'll have to. But for now, we've developed everything that's gone on to the platform ourselves.
How much is on the platform right now?
So we launched with 5 shows, and then
Like half-hour episodes, or what do you?
no, kind of a mix. I mean, some of our unscripted stuff skews a little bit longer. Our longest show is called Dimension 20. It's a D&D actual play show, and episodes are 90 minutes, for like 2 hours in some cases.
We were just talking to someone. He was like, "Oh, I watch these 3.5-hour D&D episodes like all the time." I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
I was like,
You lost me by the second D. I don't know what
yeah. We've all been very surprised by just how well that show has done. And then on the shorter side of things, some of our scripted shows are like, 10-minute episodes, 12-minute episodes.
Yeah, kind of more mid form.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the platform, I think we mentioned it, but I feel like we should re-mention it. It's called Dropout.
Dropout.
Can you tell us 3 of the rejected names?
Yes. Inside joke. Like if you want to be in on the joke, you got to get inside.
Yeah, not bad.
Right. And then like on the splash page, you like click joke and it like opens up. You fly into the O.
I love this. Do you do web design?
I did back in the 80s.
Medicine, as in laughter is the best medicine.
Cool.
And varsity was an early rejected pitch.
Varsity?
Varsity?
Oh, varsity, like Varsity Blues.
Yeah.
That's the only place I know that word from.
Certainly not. That's related to academia in any way.
Oh, and my favorite.
But college humor is not high school, right?
College humor
but
is
still,
not high school.
But
you are correct.
Varsity, you can be varsity in college as well, right? Like, isn't that true?
Yes,
like, you can be like.
And I only know this because we researched it at the time.
Wait, what's
I
varsity?
don't know.
Like the varsity in like ultimate frisbee team?
Well, there's plenty of sports teams in college,
But isn't varsity like there's junior varsity and varsity?
Yeah.
Frosh stuff.
I'm realizing how little I understand about
varsity. Three like video nerds talking about sports.
There's no varsity in band, I can tell you that much. So.
That's right.
But you can letter in band.
Yeah, I did.
There's no varsity in Devil Sticks or Diablo either.
Sure, yeah.
I can tell you that much.
That's some theater camp shit right there.
My favorite rejected name was Pizza. The idea was just call the platform Pizza.
Pizza, that's funny.
Like when anyone wants pizza, they'll accidentally subscribe to us.
That's right.
Of all of the things that like come with a cool corporate job, like a creative corporate job, naming a platform or a website is the number one least favorite thing I can think of.
Totally. We actually, interestingly, naming things is so awful in general that we have an entire Slack channel. We know what Slack is here.
Yeah.
Dedicated to...
Our listeners may not know Slack, actually.
It's just
it's like a chat tool.
Yeah, it's basically
for
like
people
an
to collaborate.
Intra-company chat tool. And the fun of it is like you can have real conversations versus email where you're like waiting to hear from people. It's just a big pile on. So we have a channel that we use for brainstorming where we name almost everything in that channel. Basically, everyone comes up with names, and when there's a name that everybody likes, they all pile in with emoji responses to that name, and you can kind of see which ones rise to the top.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's great.
I left corporate America before Slack was a thing.
Yeah, me too. I am on one Slack channel.
Yeah?
Yeah,
what is it?
It's this this After Effects plugin. The developer invited some people to beta test it. And we talk about the problems.
That's the most boring thing I've ever heard.
Is it constructive?
Yeah, I reported a lot of bugs.
There you go.
I got a free copy of the plugin.
Oh, there you go. Not bad.
So
at Comedy Central, we had to brainstorm the comedy show in Jamaica, and it's Get Up, Stand Up.
Oh yeah. Oh,
that's it.
Amazing.
That's
pretty good.
I just think about that all the time. Like somebody said that, and then they all got to leave because that's a perfect name.
Yeah.
Always
It's
the most
rare.
simple name, right? Is the best name.
Yeah, but you also you go down that rabbit hole of wanting to add a joke in, and then it's like nothing is ever going to be funny the 60th time you say it, and a title you just have to say all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
I always go for really long titles, like like Eternal Sunshine with a Spotless Mind type of titles, and I'm like, that's hilarious.
But then you have to know, like, okay, well, they just call it Eternal Sunshine.
Yeah.
Totally. We have a show on the platform, which I'm very affectionate about, which is essentially a game of Mafia. If you've never played the party game Mafia, it's like Secret Hitler or Werewolf. They all work the same way. Right?
Camp Counselor, very, very good at
very
Mafia.
familiar.
Yeah.
This is a game where two people are actually stoned, and it's the goal of the sober people to try to root out who the stoned people are. It's the goal of the stoned people not to be identified.
Sure.
And the name forever was Secret Stoner. And then at one point, someone was like, can we beat this name? And we just put it in the Slack channel and we beat it out. And someone said, Paranoia. We were just like,
it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Felt so perfect.
Yeah, that is good.
But for every time you get a Dropout or a Paranoia, there's so many other things where you're like, well, I guess we just name this such and such comedy special.
Yeah. Sam's House of Fun.
Yeah. You go zany all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys ever had meetings where you're like, we wonder why people subscribe, and then they just like stop coming back, and then there's like a giant Dropout sign above your head? Is that like the behind the scenes of your meeting?
That definitely, there were some reservations headed up until launch about stuff like that, and but when you drop out, like, you don't have money, right? And we're asking people to pay for something that's premium.
Yeah, but there's a logic to it, though. It's like it's the other side of college humor, right?
I think it's a fewfold. I think it's like there's one piece which is it's a response to college humor, and a response to college humor's kind of like situation on YouTube. Like we're dropping out of that sitch to go carve out our own destiny. There's another which is kind of like the whole Timothy Leary thing, like tune in.
Thank you for watching. So you can leave now. You can leave now. Is that what it's called? Are we talking about the Netflix show?
Tune out. It's a tune out, turn in, drop out.
Yeah.
Turn out, tune in, drop out.
Something like that.
Turn on, tune in, drop out.
There it is. Yeah.
Which was that like 70s call to arms,
right?
Or to basically like give up the mainstream. Yeah.
Right. And so is that pretty much what you're focusing on 100% of the time now? Is Dropout?
Yes. I mean, it's funny because when we started College Humor, we were like a ragtag group making all of our own stuff and being very experimental and performing direct for an audience. And then I feel like I took that and applied it to television and as best as I could. And then there's pieces of that experience that actually began to feel quite hollow. Mm-hmm. And now...
Sorry, in what ways? Why? Tell me about why it's hollow.
I mean, I think it was a couple of things. I think it was the powerlessness of that experience. Mm-hmm. But the powerlessness, I mean, wasn't just the networks. It was, if you have the talent on one side of this equation, you have the network on the other side of this equation. Like, who am I? Like, I'm not just a middleman, but my job is mediator. And that's what it turned into. I was literally asking constantly, this was the job. I was asking creators to sacrifice their vision for the networks, and I was asking networks to jeopardize their businesses for the talent. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's not it's not a fun job.
Totally. Yeah. And that's just on the metaphorical level, right? But there's a very tangible, you're looking at budgets, you're looking at brass tacks and taking that metaphor and literally having to do it in specific ways over and over and over again every single day. Yeah.
Yeah. And listen, I love empowering creative people. I mean, that was the best part of the gig, is watching some of the careers that we've nourished kind of flourish. But if I'm ultimately not the person to be able to say yes, I'm only supporting that career so much. Mm-hmm. And with College Humor forever, we've been in the luxurious position of being able to actually offer this talent meaningful direct exposure. The idea now is to see if we can do that with much bigger types of shows.
And how what have you learned since you launched in developing those shows? How have things changed? Because you had an incubation period that was pretty hefty, right? You guys got to think about it for a while, and
we did. It's true.
Build a war chest, right?
Yeah, I mean and I can say at the very least, it has not been a disaster. So far, the crazy thing about this is
it's much better than not a disaster.
Well, when we launched, CISO had just failed. I mean, full screen had just been shut down.
We had lunch, and you told me that you were going to do this thing, and I was like, as politely as I could, please.
Oh no!
Hey man, maybe don't.
Which is fair. I mean, this is when we launched.
Well, Go90 is still around, right?
Oh, God.
Yeah. Go 90.
Guys, there's something you're not telling me.
Comcast watchable.
ABCD. No. Basically, if
Oh,
Lauren and
ABCD,
I
yeah.
had a show on that network, it doesn't exist anymore.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sure.
We're pretty good at killing things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to work for
us
this company
too.
called Disney.
Yeah. That's true.
Gone.
Haven't heard about them in a
Yeah.
while.
Wait, so I guess,
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
it wasn't it pretty consistently we have managed to just surpass the expectation for how well this would go. And an expectation is kind of arbitrary in its own right. In a corporate perspective, it's like an imagined path to profitability over the course of many years, but it's very arbitrary. Even so, we've managed to beat that plan, which is crazy. When we launched, we thought we didn't say this to each other, but I think in our hearts we thought, you know what, like 30% chance, like this is just a complete and total catastrophe.
Right, but it's still it's a different model than like what Disney or Apple or any of those big heavy hitters are doing, because they're like, hey, well, what if we spent a bit, like Quibi just spent $1.5 billion,
Yes.
right? And I can't imagine you guys are spending that sort of money. It's more like, hey, let's go with like a narrow sniper target,
Yes.
sort of.
It's to be smaller and more responsible.
Right.
And to answer your question, I mean, we've learned a ton, like a ton. And the first thing that has really surprised us is that for our audience, there seems to be a certain kind of premium content agnosticism. Like they don't actually care if it feels like what they're watching is like premium content. It just needs to be content that appeals directly to them.
That's
so you
very
mean like if it
interesting.
feels expensive?
Yes,
He's
exactly.
saying they don't care.
They
Yeah.
just don't care.
Right.
Like
But do they care that they're paying for it, like as opposed to watching it on YouTube?
well, certainly they're careful about how they spend money, and they'll pay for something if they feel like they want to support its creators and they want access to it. But as we've launched titles, the success or, lack of success of those titles has the amount that we spend on them has no bearing on how successful they are.
Oh yeah, I mean that's like kind of in general, right?
Well, no, I mean, you always talk about the outliers. You talk about the Game of Thrones, right?
Sure.
Whereas, like, I imagine that an Actually, which is a game show,
Yes.
you guys can crank out a ton of, right?
Yes.
And I imagine has a pretty follow. Like,
Yeah. Actually is a great example.
Yeah.
And I think we as creators, we tend to hold in our esteem a certain type of show or a certain type of content that we think is premium. And because it's premium, our logic will be worth paying for. Like we need to be associated with a certain type of premium content because we're asking people to pay for this. It has to look and feel better
Right.
than what's on YouTube.
Right. Whereas your D&D show is a nice set, but people playing D&D.
It is people playing D&D. It is, I think, like one of the best shows in its category, meaning Brennan Lee Mulligan is like maybe the most talented dungeon master on the planet. And the cast of characters playing, like these are professional improvisers who are not only great at the game, they're like incredible
Right.
on their feet.
Right.
But what you're watching otherwise could be shot in someone's garage. And the fandom is like out of control.
Sure. My wife's cousins love the show. Like, love the show. I wonder, do you think that maybe the runtime is part of that also? Like there's a logic
Sure.
of like, oh man, they were shooting this is a 90-minute episode. That feels premium.
Maybe.
I
Yeah.
wonder.
Maybe we just need to broaden our definition of premium.
Sure, that's true. Yeah. Because certainly that you can feel the amount of work that goes into something like that, right?
Yes.
Like there's a lot of
Totally. But
thought and, training.
what's interesting is like, it's not clear that iTunes will take that show.
Mm-hmm.
The reason being that it's not more premium.
Right.
Like they look at that show and they go, this is web content. We don't know if it belongs on a platform like ours. Like maybe it brings our platform down. to host that kind of content. But for a fan of the show, like
it ain't broke.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the idea, I love the idea of like a network being like, hey, we're going to, this D&D thing is really blowing up. But we're really going to spend way too much money on it.
Right.
Totally.
Or can we do this in an 11-minute episode?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what are you guys doing with the YouTube channel? Are you still supporting that and putting out original stuff there?
Yeah, the philosophy that we embraced when we started Dropout was something that we cutely called the more is more strategy, which we were going to sell the audience on this notion that not only were they getting what they always were, they were now going to be getting even more. So they were going to be getting like free episodes and clips from shows and all of the sketches that they usually watch. And we've kept up that cadence. So we've continued to do 3 videos per week on YouTube, and we've been releasing, full episodes, clips from episodes, which is super important. It's like window shopping for this YouTube audience, right? And very slowly but surely, we're chipping away at them. So with every new preview that we post, we get a new influx of people to try Dropout for the first time.
Yeah, there's that old adage with TV. It used to be like, you can only lose audience, right?
Sure.
Like pre-DVR, right?
Yeah.
But this is kind of the opposite. It's like you give it away for free, and then slowly people kind of snowball in.
Totally, which I think that's the problem that CISO had, really. It's like, if you can make great content, a lot of CISO's content, I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
But if you tuck it away behind a paywall where nobody is,
right?
How do you create word of mouth? Like, how do you, know?
Yeah, just get people excited in the first place.
Totally.
Yeah. So tell me, what do you think the future of Dropout is? Like, what do you guys, now that you've learned all these things, how are things changing? How are things evolving?
Yeah. So, I think it hasn't happened yet, but logic would dictate that at a certain point, we're going to run out of college humor viewers to win over.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point,
like the YouTube college humor viewers.
Yeah. YouTube, Facebook, social media, anybody who like has given college humor a chance over the years is probably our most addressable audience. But then, like, who do we appeal to next? And like, what is a very clear message that we can deliver to that person?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because
right now it's a super fan platform in a certain sense.
Really,
right? Yeah. Yeah, but it can't, like, if you continue to grow, it can't always be that. So how do you explain to my parents what Dropout is?
Exactly. And if you were, let's say that you are a, consumer of media. Let's say you consume media. Let's say.
I only did it once or twice.
What's a message that I can give you that's like, oh, there's something for me on this platform that I can't get anywhere else?
Mm-hmm.
And what a lot of SVODs, subscription video on demand services, are doing is they're saying, we just need the one show.
Right.
For Hulu, it's Handmaid's Tale. For Netflix, maybe it's Stranger Things or another show. For you,
right.
For Amazon, it was
Fleabag. It's not the free shipping. I swear. I don't even use the free shipping.
Fleabag is really good.
It's really,
the second season is really great. And we ultimately, like, we don't think that is our model.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't think our model is gamble millions of dollars, see if we can get that one hit show, 10 episodes a year, bring people back to the platform.
Could it be like a celebrity, like, I mean, a horrible example, but you have like a Kim Kardashian show or something, like in Kanye, like that people, she has like such an insanely giant audience in the world.
Yes.
And this is the only place you can get more of her type of.
I mean, you could totally do the thing. Like, you could find the person who you think is going to bring the qualified audience, but you still got to figure out what it is exactly that you stand for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what we've been doing over the course of the last year. Is like, it's been really like a search for identity at the same time as we've been creating this business.
Are you allowed to tell us which of your shows has like pulled in the most new viewers, new subscribers?
What the Fuck 101, which is our animated show.
Funny. Yeah.
Has pulled in more viewers than any other show.
And what's that about?
It's an adult magic school bus in which a detention teacher is taking her students on lessons of like fucked up learning. It's like all the most fucked up things about our universe you can imagine, all of them true, right? So do an episode on like parasites, on failed military experiments. So it's got the Adam ruins everything component,
Right.
but it's all animated and it's like way more R-rated.
Right.
Right.
And
you put the
with
first
the
episode on
zany-
YouTube?
We put the first episode on YouTube and we put subsequent clips on YouTube.
right. Yeah. You're snippeting things out.
Yep.
So I was going to get to there's a super fan aspect of it, like we touched on before, but an interesting part of it is that your talent base is so exclusively college humor, right? So like my favorite show on Dropout, I mentioned to you before, and I think was an endorsement, is Total Forgiveness, right? And I think that I love that show. It's so good.
Endorsement of yours?
On the podcast.
Yeah. Like
Like he mentioned
Dope.
it like
Yeah.
6 months ago.
I'm
That's
not
awesome.
joking. I
Thank
fucking
you.
love that show. But I think that I have maybe a slightly more extreme emotional response to it than like I think your most avid viewers. Like, oh, everybody feels like they know Grant or they know Allie.
Sure.
And like whether that's literally true or not, you know, like there's an attachment that you feel, right? And
Yeah.
I think that that's specific to YouTube channels and social media and all that. That's part of
Totally.
It's a different ecosystem
Yeah.
than television. But so that kind of gives you a very, like as soon as someone starts making a TV show or something like that, if like Grant went and got a TV show, all of a sudden he couldn't be available for all of the Dropout and YouTube aspects of it, right? So like, and it would feel maybe strange if you got Kim Kardashian or, you know, a more college humor.
Oh, we definitely grapple with that.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
how do you...
Like Kim's come to you a bunch of times.
Oh my, like, so
Yeah.
thirsty to work with us. I mean, if you were to, let's just take a very like sensible example,
Sure.
right? Like if you were to take someone like Jordan Peele, you would
Perfect.
say like,
Yeah.
you have Jordan Peele, he's going to be like the face of your network now. It would be like, well, what about all the faces that are already on our network?
Right.
Like these are the
Right.
people who our audience loves and
The
identifies
reason
with.
they're subscribing is because they love those people.
Right.
Right.
Well,
And
there is
people-
an example of this model that's worked really well before, right? Which is Rooster Teeth.
Yes.
Sure.
So Rooster
that-
Teeth, probably more so than any other company, I would say is the company that we share the most DNA with.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's sort of
You did the 23andMe test.
exactly. We did 23andMe and it came back and we were 60% Rooster Teeth, 10% Funny or Die, 25%
30%
Cracked,
HGTV.
5% The Onion.
There you go.
Yeah, and I think the question is sort of the same question that Rooster Teeth is asking, you know, with what they're doing with their subscription platform, which is sort of like, can they go from what they are today to like next generation Adult Swim or like next
Right.
generation MTV is actually, I think, what the boomers
Sure.
like to say, and I
Yeah.
think Adult Swim is like kind of what we like to say.
Right. Yeah.
Well, can I bring up I'm just talking out loud or thinking out loud here, but like you look at a Netflix and if there's like a really bad show on there that a bunch of people hate, people that love Stranger Things, and there's a new show that's supposed to be like Stranger Things and they see it and they're like, oh, this sucks. They wouldn't like cancel Netflix, but you could see if Rooster Teeth had like 2 or 3 shows that just totally missed the mark, people would be like, Rooster Teeth lost it, you know, because they're so precious about their brand and their voice and their DNA. Is that like a thing?
Is it preciousness or is it just volume? Is it just that there's enough things to flip through?
Well,
Right?
but that's there's similar things, right? Because you're saying we want to expand Dropout to be to have everyone on Dropout.
I
right?
actually agree with both of you because people do say Netflix has lost it, but it doesn't matter because there's so much
Right.
volume.
Yeah, I canceled Netflix for a month. I was like, well, this is
Yeah,
stupid.
totally.
You did?
Yeah. I tried to juggle them because I
Yeah.
have like all of them, and that feels dumb.
Yeah. Well, this is actually why I think as we're headed toward this like unbundling that's occurring in TV, like you will subscribe to multiple things is because while Netflix Netflix isn't competing with any other TV network. They're competing with TV, period. They want to replace your cable box. But like HBO has like a voice, and you're going to subscribe for like the prestige content that HBO goes after. Disney is going to be like a totally different utility. It's going to be like, do you want kids programming in your Marvel movies? Like, here you are. This is all before it'll get rebundled in some way, shape, or form, probably. Or like Disney, Apple, Netflix, HBO, like Hulu. These will be the new NBC, ABC, CBS.
Right. Absolutely.
Like we're seeing a complete.
Wait, are you saying there's going to be a new company, like a new spectrum that's like, hey, for $29.99 a month, you'll get Netflix, Hulu.
The theory
Disney.
is that will happen eventually. I don't know if it will happen anytime soon. Right. And
I think though it will though, because I think if you look at like Prime is my favorite example. I subscribed to CISO and didn't have a show on that network. And I did so because I used my PlayStation and watched everything through Prime, and it would be like, hey, for $2 more a month or whatever it was, you can get all the CISO. And then it's integrated into everything else that I was watching.
So convenience.
Right.
Yeah.
So like same menu when you're searching and everything.
It maybe was sectioned out a little bit, the same way I think Showtime and Stars are now across all of those bundles. But I bet that your maybe not Netflix, but Hulu, Amazon Prime, the kind of more broad style streamers, I bet you'll be able to just kind of like tack on a la carte.
Totally.
And I think you can, if you're thinking of Dropout in the world, in the ecosystem of those other streamers, then you can see it right next to Comedy Central and FXX and all of those. You know, so it's kind of just like maybe you visualizing it in that way maybe helps sculpt.
I think that's
bit, you know?
I mean, and I think we're close. Like Apple, for instance, just announced that in their kind of reboot of Apple TV, not only are they creating originals, but you're going to be able to subscribe to any number of channels using Apple TV. And it'll be like a 2 or 3 click process to do that.
Like an NBC and an HBO, you mean?
Maybe not NBC, but anything that makes itself available on a subscription basis. So NBC actually just announced that they are doing this. So yes, NBC eventually. HBO, whatever else. Shudder, Acorn.
Right.
World of Wonder. I'm a huge drag fan.
Right.
Oh, I wasn't sure what World of Wonder was. Is that like
it's RuPaul's production company?
Cool, smart.
So WoW Presents, I think, is the name of the subscription service. So yeah, if it's just clicks away,
right?
I think there are a few companies kind of going in that direction.
I think that's the future. Yeah,
yeah. Or even, I mean, if I was running Dropout,
gimme.
Like you could. This is a bad example because they're not, the DNA doesn't overlap as much, but I would like reach out to Masterclass or something and say like, hey, what if you say for an extra $2 a month, if you subscribe to Masterclass, you could get Dropout, and we'll do the same with Masterclass, and we'll start feeding each other.
So we are not talking to Masterclass, and I can't tell you who we're talking to, but we are exploring stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Slave class. It's a much better class. Yeah, I would. There's this one. I was thinking who my Kim Kardashian was, like who, if they had a show, I would subscribe to their service, their platform,
no matter
just
what.
For that show.
Yeah, sure. Who do you think it is?
Who do you think it is, Matt?
Boy, I don't know that I have anybody.
No, who do you think my guy is?
Oh, yours? Andrew Kramer.
Yeah.
Kramer?
Andrew Kramer.
Andrew Kramer.
The best VFX tutorial maker in the world. The J.J. Abrams pretty much snatched up, and he doesn't make tutorials anymore because he's working on like Star Trek and Star Wars and all these dumb movies.
Has he done a masterclass?
He hasn't done a masterclass, but his website is a masterclass on visual effects.
Wow.
Yeah, he's been doing them for free basically forever.
Yeah.
Like if you go over to the College Humor editing bay and are like, Andrew Kramer, right guys? They'll be like, yeah, dude. I got started in After Effects.
I'm going to try this. I'll let you know.
I guarantee it'll work.
He's the biggest celebrity in that world, but everyone's really frustrated with him because he puts out like one tutorial every 6 months now because he's so busy. But if he had like his own platform and he had like his guest people and it was like $5 a month and you would get a new tutorial every other day or something.
I mean, how is that different from Patreon though? Right? Like, I think that's the other sort of model that we're talking about.
Well, there is no Andrew Kramer equivalent on Patreon. There's like close. There's people that are kind of okay, but he's like this kind of perfect mix of dad jokes and VFX tutorials.
What do you guys think of Patreon? Are you a fan?
Yeah, I mean, we have one,
I know.
patreon.com/justshootapod. I like it very much, though.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, exactly. We have a very specific philosophy on it, though, because we are not giving extra content away, and it's because we don't want to do. If the mission statement of the show is anyone can direct, then putting that behind a paywall doesn't make sense on a philosophical or ethical level. So it's just like, hey, if you've got some cash and you want to buy us a coffee once a month, or like
that's
really
very nice.
buy our editor a coffee once a month. Really,
it's almost like if you feel like you've gotten something from us and feel like giving back. I mean, my philosophy on it is like slightly different than Matt's, which is, I think part of the reason people tune into the show is because we are not full-time podcasters or interviewers. We work in the film industry.
Right.
And if we were to start making content for our Patreon subscribers, it would really
it would
eat into our
the balance
working in the film industry. And then
no matter how much we like podcasting, it would be less valuable for us to do it full time.
Sure.
But also we'd be less legitimate as representatives of like film industry people.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I love it. I was really confused by it at first because I didn't understand why anyone would do it. But now, I don't know, I get it. I mean, now I support other, I'm a patron for other things because literally it's out of a fear that what happened to Andrew Kramer is that he got so busy and he's not making these videos I love anymore.
Yes.
I don't want that to happen to other creators. So I want to give him like a couple bucks a month.
Yeah.
Who do you support on Patreon?
There's this guy, Captain Disillusionment.
Yep.
Captain, he's probably my favorite. I think that might be the only one right now, but I support our Patreon.
Yeah, that's great.
My wife's a patron.
Yeah, that's right.
I just found out about this podcast Patreon, but I'm going to go become a supporter after this
thanks,
episode.
buddy. If you sign up for the $10 level, you'll get a Just Shoot a Pod hat.
I definitely won't.
Don't do that. Yeah, I would honestly, I'd rather have more people at just like $1 or $4. Those are my two favorite numbers.
Sure.
Matt, you're going to offend our $10.
I love the $10 subscribers too.
Sorry.
Thank you so
much. I will
much,
also
everyone.
redo my part. I'm going to, there's one above 10. I'm going to go for that.
We have a couple
that
20s.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but it's cool. But at $10, you do get a hat. We just ran out of hats.
And we're going to get
new ones.
We're going to get more. Sam, I want to talk about how you feel about everything.
Are you done?
Everything.
Feel about Dropout, and because we were talking before we started rolling about how one of the main themes of this show is just kind of like reassessing what you want.
Totally.
Right? I think that the first decision, for many filmmakers after they really learn what it is like, oh, do I want to keep doing this?
Yes.
And do I want to be a director, or do I want to be a DP or an editor? Like, you learn more and more about the opportunities of how to be an artist and express yourself and also make money.
And I just want to remind people that might not have listened to our 44th episode that you were on, that you started out as a writer, director, actor, performer.
It's true.
And you, at some point a long time ago, realized that was like not the be all end all of what you wanted to do. Right?
Totally. I mean, actually, I would go even further than that. And I would say, it's a great introduction to this premise, but that anything that I've achieved in this career, it's been with some settling. Mm-hmm. Like, I got into it to be an actor. That's really what I wanted to do. And at a certain point, when I saw the odds were stacked so against me, I made the concession and became a director.
I'd rather build a Forbes 500 or Fortune 500.
Which is like hardly a concession to become a director.
Sure, yeah.
But it was really about like, I want a creative career. I know that's challenging.
But directors are much more in control of their career than actors.
I think that's true. Producers are even more in control of their career than directors are. And executives.
Right.
Like, how do you describe yourself, actually? What
do I say I do?
What do you do right now? Yeah.
I call myself a creative executive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
My title is Chief Creative Officer, so that's about right.
Right.
So I have other tools in my tool belt. They're just not my job title.
Sure. Well, and also I think that excludes the fact that you'll be in sketches every once in a while,
Sure.
and direct a series when it makes sense.
Yeah.
You know,
Totally.
so you won, is what we're saying.
Not at all. No, not in the slightest. I mean, what's interesting is, you know, we were making these videos for College Humor. It was going well. At a certain point, we were like kind of a muscle outgrowing its arm back in New York, in the sense that we wanted to do videos that were way more expensive than the internet was ever going to allow. We did some of those videos, and it was really fun.
So fun. Yeah.
But it was like, if we're going to make this sustainable, it's TV. And everyone around me was saying TV, and some of my peers were going to TV. And so it felt like this very obvious signal that I needed to get into TV. And so we did. Like I said, I think it's a combination of my role in it, but also just the process felt like I had been so spoiled because I had had years and years of being in the conductor's seat.
Right.
That when we were finally negotiating with networks, it became more of a slog. And then I had to start asking myself some really difficult questions of like, well, for all intents and purposes, we're successful. It's just that I'm miserable.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's funny. I was listening to a podcast the other day. 99% Visible was interviewing the guy who does the Anthropocene Review, which is an awesome podcast.
Oh, no, I don't
You've
know.
never listened to it? I'm forgetting his name, the host name off the top of my head. But it's the same guy who wrote The Fault in Our Stars. Really interesting dude.
Jonathan.
John Green?
Yes,
Yeah.
John Green. So John Green was saying, so I'm stealing his anecdote, but there's this joke about a moth that goes into a doctor's office. And the moth says, you know, Doc, my life is just falling apart. Like my wife, she left me, and she's with another man now. And my son is married to this horrible woman. And every time I like see him, I just see my own failures. And, you know, my daughter has run away from home. And the doctor says, Moth, you know, I appreciate all that, but I'm a podiatrist. Like, why would you come into my office? And the moth says, well, the light was on. And he uses this joke as a means of saying, like, we have a tendency to go where the light's on, to just chase after opportunity.
Yeah, sure.
And when I reached when I could have been defined as successful and yet was unhappy, that was like an incredibly crushing moment.
Yeah.
Where like the light took me as far as it was going to take me.
Which I think is like, it's such a specific situation for you, but is so broadly applicable to any artistic endeavor, right?
Totally.
Like, I think we've all been in those situations where you achieve that goal, and then you're like, well, why did I want to do this in the first place? Like,
yeah,
it's also very common for Jewish people. I have a friend who is not raised Jewish, though I believe he is Jewish. His mom converted to Christianity, and he told me his observation about Jewish people was, no matter how successful they are, they always seem disappointed.
Yeah, totally. That's very funny, and probably
it's a cultural thing.
I mean, like
but it's true of most creative people as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure that both of you identify with this. I've got a part of me that's like very creative and very sensitive and very artistic, and then another part of me that's just pure raging ambition.
Sure. Yeah.
And to try to, like, one side or the other will win out depending on what the situation is.
And sometimes those impulses really work together well, right? Sometimes it's perfect. And sometimes I think when things are going, or I can say personally, when things are not going the way I want them to, then that ambition just sort of blinds you, and that sensitivity triggers some depression, and then it's just a spiral. You know what I mean? Then you're like, well, what am I even doing?
Totally.
You know? But it's also the same set of impulses that got me as far as it has, you know?
Right. You can always say that. You're like,
sure.
you know, this is a really messed up chemistry.
Yeah.
It's like nuclear, it's like nuclear physics. It's like, we really shouldn't have these power plants. This is like totally unstable, but it's also supplying power
But
to
the
an
lights are
entire
on.
village.
Yeah,
Pretty good. Let me ask you, what like gets you more excited personally? Having like 1 million views on like episode 2 of a show on Dropout, or seeing an Adam billboard on Sunset Boulevard? Like all like profits and money aside.
Make it 10 million views to like a hit. You see a million views on something all the time.
Well,
You know what
but
I mean?
a million views on YouTube is probably
sure.
equivalent
I
to
guess
like
relative to
20,000
Dropout.
views on Dropout. I imagine the
Sure.
YouTube. I mean, even we have a podcast.
No need to quibble. A hit on Dropout versus a billboard.
It all depends where your chips are at that particular moment, right? Like,
Well, I guess I'm
you
wondering which
excited
one
to-
is the light that the moth is drawn to. It's the billboard. Right?
I think the light's drawn to the billboard. The billboard is the light, and I am the moth drawn to it.
Right.
Like, I think I have had to re-educate myself in the type of thing that's going to make me happy, and Dropout has been like a big step in the right direction for me because I've gotten to chase after the types of projects that I believe in and do them more so on my own terms. But what's interesting is I think in my career I'm actually regressing, and if I had to guess, I would say I will only regress further. Like, I've been doing these like really weird dance videos on social media that it's just me and a cell phone, and I've been playing around a lot on TikTok.
Oh yeah.
And like that, like the first dance video I posted got a lot of pickup, and watching that pickup of my really, really like aggressively stupid dance video was actually more exciting than an ad and billboard.
Do you think that has to do with the primal fact that it's your face and that the
That I always
recognition?
wanted to be an actor.
Well, or just like I think when it's your face and then you see the like ticker go up,
Sure.
that's, I call that the refreshies, right? Like there's a real high off of just that
Sure.
aspect
Sure.
of it, right? Like if your face were on the billboard and someone had tweeted out like, I can't believe Sam's got a billboard, and retweet. Do you
Sure.
think it would be more apples to
part.
apples?
Truthfully, I think that if that were me, like if I were on the ad and billboard, and people do get us confused sometimes because we look like brothers or cousins.
You keep ruining things. Sam.
It would be pegged to a lot of Jewish anxiety.
Uh-huh.
Like, I also have this like Icarus fear, which is sort of like, but what amount of attention is like too much attention, and like, can I rise to these expectations? And there's something I've always loved about the internet, which is that generally speaking, this isn't universally true. You are as good as your best work,
Mm-hmm.
and your bad work disappears. And that is not true of television.
Mm-hmm.
In other
Oh,
words,
In television, it's more your last work, right? Like
Right.
your most recent.
your most
job.
recent work, or like if you have, I don't say this to scare anybody, but if you are a young director given a shot at a major motion picture and a studio spends $35 million on you,
Sure.
and that's a total disaster, it will be very hard for you to work again.
Yeah, that's called if you tranked it.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure.
Josh tranked it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or even scarier, if it just opened second.
Sure.
Like if you just opened against a huge movie,
Right.
there's nothing you can do about it. Child's Play versus Toy Story 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why, again, I just like love, there's something about the internet and the amount of control
Mm-hmm.
that you have over it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I mean, just two thoughts real quick, and then we should probably start wrapping up. But one is like that billboard to me, like when you set out, like on day one, when you want to work in film, whether it's as an actor or whatever, in your mind, a billboard of your thing on Sunset Boulevard is probably like some sort of marker. In
Yeah.
the same way that we have so many filmmakers on that are like, I just wanted my movie in the theater, even though everyone knows no one's going to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to lose money. They just like want it on the big screen for no reason, right? When on Netflix or whatever, a billion more people will see it.
Yeah. It's funny. I would tie that back into this notion of like, we as creators, we tend to value certain things, certain screens,
Sure.
certain budgets more than the audience does in practicality. Like they are agnostic,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think also, Oren always teases me about referencing my parents on this show.
Yeah.
But I think that I use them as the symbol of what traditional mainstream recognition is, right?
Yes.
So if they have heard of the thing, then that means a lot more than,
Totally.
Like there are plenty of things where I've done name brand shows
Yes.
that they are very excited about that don't get half as many viewers as a College Humor sketch.
It's really interesting, right? I actually had a good friend say to me at one point, who's been very successful, that the reason why he was so hell-bent on television was because of his parents would recognize him as successful.
Yeah.
Which I think is dangerous because the technology is developing so rapidly that what your parents think of as successful will be just like more and more irrelevant.
Yeah. It barely counts now. Yeah.
But I guess I just had this eureka moment right now that like almost everyone that goes into this industry is doing so against their parents' will.
Yeah.
And
my parents were fine with it. It's more that the things that we fell in love with just are outdated now.
Sure.
You know, like you couldn't be like, I want to be a YouTuber because YouTube hadn't been invented when we were kids.
Well,
but I think
the second half of my eureka moment, sorry, before Matt interrupted me.
This is the dynamic of the podcast. Patreon.com/Jahzzar.
Is that the ultimate win in this business is if your parents realize they were wrong about your career path.
This is actually
we'll see if that ever happens.
This is 100% true. Every time I've done psychedelic mushrooms, I have come to the realization that I'm trying to prove something to someone, and if I could just stop, I would be so much better off. It's like, yeah, you're right. So many parents say, whatever you do, don't go into this industry. And then like, if you can just get on, like, you know, if you can win an Academy Award and shove it in their face.
Yeah.
But do you think, though, that then you lose that thing, that hunger? Do you know what I mean? Like, if you could let it go, maybe you'd be happier.
Right.
But is that a thing that helps drive you?
That's a great question. I would rather be driven by something different. I don't think that that's the only type of fuel, the only type of resource that we have to spend.
I will say that as I have become happier and more successful, and my jealousy of my peers has waned, I am less ambitious.
That's interesting.
Like I used to, like when I was, you know, at Comedy Central and I would watch other directors get to do their thing.
Yeah.
I'd wake up at 5 every morning and write.
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, you know, what time's my call time? Well, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm a director. I don't need to be there.
I lost my edge is what I'm saying.
What's your relationship to that?
To ambition?
As you have gotten older, have you become more or less comfortable with yourself and therefore more or less ambitious?
Well, you know,
Oren has other things to live for.
I go back and forth a lot. I've talked about this on the last episode that like, I think I would be equally happy producing or co-directing or being like involved in a project as I would be direct. I mean, I love directing. That's like my favorite thing, but it is kind of exhausting and I've pitched a lot on things that I didn't get. And it's like, it would be nice to be a little bit more in control sometimes. Sure. Despite what I just said about directors being in more control than actors.
Yeah.
So knowing that like what I'm striving for is like this moving target gets exhausting after like 15 years.
Sure.
But that said, I mean, I feel like we hear this on the podcast all the time. It's like people that just fail and fail and fail, and then they try a new thing. We had this director, Maggie Kiley, on the podcast. She like made features. She like went through director's workshop for women, all these different things, and nothing happened. She pretty much gave up. And then the last thing she applied for, like after she was like a seasoned filmmaker, was like the Ryan Murphy program. Yeah. And now she's like directing TV like every single day.
She's like, I think half of Sabrina is hers at this point.
Yeah. Wow. So I just applied to this Disney Launchpad program thing today.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. Which is like for discovering new filmmakers because I feel like, I was just talking to my wife about this today, is like we get so jaded and we get to, I think everyone gets in their career to a place where they're like, well, I'm no longer taking those types of projects. So that's too small or this is too big or that acting or that script too bad or whatever. And like, I think it's just like this like sine wave of like being on a high and then being on a low and trying something new. And if you don't keep on trying new things, then you just, you get you lose your ambition and you just kind of
Sure.
stop. So that's why I think in the podcast, like a lot of what I get out of it personally is like I hear new people's perspectives
Sure.
on how they pitch or how they write or what excites
Right.
them. And I try to, kind of,
Steal it.
Yeah. Siphon it off.
draft off of it.
Sure.
Somehow.
I think when I'm in a better spot, I'm inspired by a creative curiosity. Like I'm sure that you will both identify with this. You sometimes just get like an idea, like a visual in your mind for something that could be that you could make. And then the question is like, will this work? And if I make it, will anyone relate to it or identify with it or like it? And if I'm at my best, I'm in that mode versus I'm building a career mode.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I think we all go back and forth between like having ideas and being excited about them and then seeing something similar to them and then being like, forget it. And then you see someone else did another thing that's similar and it's like a giant hit.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's just fighting self-doubt, I think, is like this entire career.
Do you find, Sam, that because you have the rock of your college humor career, that you feel like you have more bandwidth to like make a silly dance video and like
Probably
let that be the thing? Yeah.
Probably. I mean, I definitely would acknowledge that it's coming from a place of some privilege because I have that to be able to lean on. But I'm also very likely to be insecure about that.
Sure.
Like, college humor, so what? Like,
Yeah.
it's, and also college humor is not me. Like, my face isn't a part of that.
Right.
As much, but I have a little bit of like middle-aged dad tinkering out in the garage right now.
Yeah.
Where I'm just like,
I would love a garage.
yeah, like, so what?
Yeah.
Let's try some shit.
Yeah. Check
I
out
was
this
trying to
cool
build-
table I just
I was
refinished.
trying to build a balance beam for my daughter.
Yeah.
And Kara's like, you can buy them for $60 on Amazon as I'm holding like $170 worth of materials at Home Depot. Fine.
Yeah.
Get it
Where's
on
the
Amazon.
pleasure in the Amazon purchase?
Do you think that like the success of your parents has anything to do with like your ambition or where the end goal is, Because like I
Totally.
think obviously your dad fairly well known and Matt always talks about how his parents were like middle school teachers or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Teachers. Yeah.
I wonder if that just tying it back to like the proving to your parents that you're valuable.
Totally. For a while there, it was like, unless I outdo my father in my chosen profession, I won't have like fulfilled some sort of destiny. And again, you just do mushrooms enough times. And you're like, what the hell am I talking about?
Oh, that sounds good.
Who am I proving this to? Like, my dad just wants me to be happy. Everyone else probably doesn't give a shit one
they're
way
not
or
keeping
the other.
track. Yeah.
Like, literally, I need to be able to survive and like be regularly very creative. Like, those are my standards for success.
Yeah.
Well, for the record, I think it's much harder to be the most famous person in the entertainment business than it is in the economics business.
I'll settle for viral dance videos.
Yeah. Evolution of Sam.
Well, Sam, this has been great.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, man. Can we hop into some unpaid endorsements?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Unpaid endorsements.
Just a couple things. I watched Euphoria last night, the pilot.
Ooh.
I had seen like mixed reviews online and stuff, so I didn't quite know. Somebody had posted that they like loved the second episode, like one of the best things they'd ever seen. A friend of mine on Facebook. So I watched the pilot last night and I loved it. I thought it was so good. It reminded me kind of like the British Skins.
Yeah.
And kind of like Requiem for a Dream. And I don't know, but also it's totally its own thing. And Zendaya is like the lead actress and she's just like so good. And the cinematography is crazy and the visual effects. It was just really good. And the performances, it's basically all these teenagers like talking about sex in a way that feels very real, like so real that if I was directing it and I was in the room, I'd feel like uncomfortable that I'm in the room listening to these teenagers talk about this stuff because it felt so real, but also like hyper stylized at the same way.
Yeah, the stylization stuff got me intrigued.
Yeah, it's stylized like visually, but also it's like the characters, like real teenagers don't go to parties and have sex and do drugs like 24/7, you know,
Yeah.
like they do in this show, but it's still the performances are so good. And other than Zendaya, I don't know any of the actors. So it's not like famous,
Yes.
super famous actors. And at the end of the episode, I was like, who the hell directed this? And it was Augustine Frizzell, who had been on our podcast. And like once I saw that,
She was like, yeah, I'm working on this thing for HBO.
yeah. And we watched her movie, Never Going Back, right? Is that what it's called? Like,
You see.
yeah. It's like so obvious why she directed this pilot.
Yes.
Her feature is about, it's like a much kind of simpler story, but it's just about two teenage girls that are best friends and want to get out of town.
Yeah.
Like to party.
Yeah. And
have a great relationship.
Yeah. And it's like kind of like a slice of life type of movie.
But the connective tissue.
But
is
their
there.
performances just feel, again, like hyper real, but also like hyper unreal. I don't know. So I just thought it was like a perfect example of like a voice and a director bringing, and she didn't write the script or create the show or anything, but how she brought something special to that pilot. And it's so hard to figure out as a director, like what you are contributing, you know, as opposed to like just trying to not fuck up like someone else's script. You know?
Totally. I was reading, there was an article that was written about the show. I haven't seen it. I want to, and you're selling me further on it. But that said that actually teenagers are like having less sex and doing less drugs than like ever before in 50 years.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
Well,
I feel
think
like I've heard that as well.
They're substituting. I think the drugs nowadays are your phone.
Yes.
Right.
And the sex is probably just pornography.
Sure.
Yeah. There you go.
But it's kind of like it's turning into Demolition Man, where it's like no one actually needs to like be in the same room to like have any of those experiences.
Boy, as a kid, what a letdown.
Yeah.
Do you remember? It's like, oh man, this is going to be a good. I can't believe my parents are letting me watch this movie, and then they just put on helmets, and they're like, oh, that was great. I remember it as
What
a kid.
happened to that Sandy Bullock?
Yeah, right. Sam, what you got?
Me next?
Yeah. I like to put the guest in the middle.
Ooh, speaking
I've
of...
never noticed that, but you know, only 176 episodes.
Mine is going to be TikTok.
Oh yeah.
Has anyone done TikTok before?
So after we sat down, I spent, I don't know, like an hour or two. I was like, oh my God, this is so much.
Yes.
And it genuinely made me a little scared because I was like, you could just watch this forever.
Yes. Has TikTok been an unpaid endorsement before?
By another creative executive.
That's okay. No, I'm all for the double down though.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's interesting about it is totally the rebirth of Vine, more or less. It was Musical.ly, and then Musical.ly got bought by TikTok, which was a big company overseas, and they've just like brought it over here in a big way. And it's based on this notion of like they have a giant music catalog, and you can make anything, make any sort of video be a soundtrack or as a visual to that soundtrack. But the ways that people are using it are so creative. And they're all doing it just using their phones and the tools in the app. And I genuinely think some of the funniest short form videos that I've ever seen in my life have been in the last like 3 months on TikTok.
Yeah.
I think they've made it
crazy clever stuff too, right?
Yeah. I think they've made it so accessible that they've literally like brought the tools to an entire generation of like teenagers with nothing else to do.
Right. And also the drive for social capital.
Yeah.
Like the only things that's important as a teenager is being cool.
Yes.
So like getting a lot of views on your TikTok video. What do you call them? TikToks?
Views.
Views.
Yeah. Views and hearts.
But what's the video object is?
Oh, is it TikTok?
Is it TikTok? Yeah. So getting likes on that TikTok is the coolest thing you can do. That's cooler than driving a cool car or whatever.
Yeah, but what's interesting about TikTok, it's like the unFacebook because it has like zero to do with your friend network, right? And it's like part of their algorithm is about just like spreading these like catchy ideas to people. And it doesn't like as soon as you start, even if you have no friends, you're starting to see things from people and interacting with them or remaking their videos, right?
And it's very, it's everything that this generation is. So sometimes it's edgy and offensive, but it's also incredibly progressive. Like there's like such heavy diversity on the platform.
And it'll
like,
be like really emotional videos, right? In the middle of
you
all
can go
that
down
nonsense.
like any rabbit hole you want, but there's like incredible creativity. There's like people who are just absolutely brilliant at makeup. There's people who are like showing off that they're like a year sober.
Mhm.
And then there's people playing essentially what are UCB like comedy games.
Right.
Like a meme meets a song. So everybody playing this sort of like same game with this song, and people then like one-upping that game and then like forking off of that game. It's like, it's genuinely an evolution of comedy. And I think it's replacing like sketch.
Do you
Yeah,
think
everything kind of, you know?
Do you think if you ever run for political office, anything you put on TikTok will end your
I think that
career?
that option is long in my shadow.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. There goes my write-in nomination.
You write it whatever you want, buddy.
Yeah, that's true. There you go.
Sam's like, I mean, you can still nominate me.
Yeah.
It's only 23 candidates.
I didn't say I didn't not want to beat my dad.
Matt, you got anything?
Yeah. So kind of similar to yours. Have you guys watched Legion?
Yes.
FX show?
Yeah.
I watched the first 2 seasons of it, and I haven't started season 3.
So those season 3 posters are so good. I
So
was
good.
like, oh, I'm going to give this a shot.
Yeah.
And also, it's the perfect category of a show my wife probably won't like.
Yeah.
And so that if she's out doing something, that's a very narrow number of shows that I have.
Sure.
Rick and Morty isn't back yet. So I was like, what am I going to do? So I started it. It's great in
It's
ways
wild.
I did not expect. And so we had a director named Sarah Adina Smith on, and I'd seen her feature Buster's Malheart, which was like psychedelic and weird and really out there. And I was like, oh, she's done some episodes of Legion. Huh. That doesn't make sense to me.
Sure.
And then I saw an episode and I was like, oh, of course. In the same way that Augustine doing Euphoria, I was like, of course,
Yeah.
Sarah has done episodes of this show. It's really psychedelic. They're not super worried about telling a really concise or tight story. They're playing with time and, memory and false narratives and all sorts of cool psychedelic stuff. It's crazy that it's a TV show.
Well, that's kind of like the
It's
theme
wild.
of the show. I think Noah Hawley, right?
Yes,
He made the
yeah.
show the same way I did Fargo. I think he told his like writing staff and the directors and everything that like, I forget the word he used, but there's some word that is like the heart of the show, and it's something along the lines of confusion.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like that's what he's going for. Like if something, like if A then B, like then we should never show B after A.
Yeah.
It's my reaction was very similar to the first season, which was like, I can't believe that anyone would allow this on television, because
Yeah.
it feels like I'm watching a superhero story, but told through the lens of like a really talented like SVA film student.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And like, I would just like, I don't even know if I love it. I just know that I'm like so glad it exists. Because
totally.
it feels literally like there's a collection of data points all gathered on one end of a piece of graph paper, and Legion's on the opposite side of that
Right.
same sheet of
Right.
paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just another reminder that like TV is where indie film is really flourishing, basically.
For what it's worth, on paper that would be my absolute favorite show, but I don't really like it.
You don't connect to it. Yeah, makes sense.
Huh.
I find it's funny. I saw have you guys seen the movie with Selena Gomez, Spring Breakers?
Spring Breakers.
When I went to see that movie, Harmony Korine, it was at the ArcLight. He happened to be at the theater and he did an intro and he said, hey, before you watch this, I'm gonna give you one piece of advice, which is like, don't try to like sit there and figure out why everything is happening. Just like let it wash over you.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed that movie, and I think it's because he gave that piece of advice. No one gave me that advice about Legion, and I just like watched it with my wife, and we were just constantly like unsure of what meant what. And you watch things at night. Sometimes
There
you miss
are
a couple
moments where you're
things.
like, could you guys just talk about this? Just somebody,
Sure.
somebody just bring this thing up to
Yes.
each other, and then I think things will be a lot clearer. But
What's interesting, I just watched Good Omens on
Oh, I
Amazon,
wanna
and
see
like a lot of people are talking about the show. I didn't
Neil
like
Gaiman,
it at all.
right?
oh, you disliked it. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it's similarly crazy in the sense that the plot is so wild that there are zero stakes. Like
Mhm.
anything can happen and anything does. So why should I be in suspense about what's going to happen next?
Right.
But Legion for me gets away with it because I'm so interested in the filmmaking.
That's interesting. So, not to go too far down a tangent, but my wife doesn't really care about Neil Gaiman or Terry Pratchett at all.
Yeah.
So the thing of like, what's impressive about Good Omens is that they do kind of like these like literate backflips. You know,
Yes.
It's like we're pulling from this mythology and that mythology, and like the dialogue is so clever, and like, isn't this quippy and fun? And she's just not charmed by it at all. Which is kind of what you're
my
saying.
wife is with Edgar Wright. Like after we saw The End of the World, or is that what it's called? The bar at the end at the...
Yes.
Yeah.
At the end, I looked at my wife. I was like, I thought I could feel the electricity between us enjoying the movie so much. And I was like, that was the most cleverly written movie I've ever seen in my life. And she was like, I did not like it.
Yeah. She's wrong. If that makes you... if she's still here.
She moved out 20 minutes ago.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, different strokes, but I think it's like, it's an interesting thing to be like, oh, these people are so good at a certain thing, and you just don't care about it.
Yeah. As a filmmaker, it's worth watching at least the first few episodes of Legion.
Yeah. If only for like, I can't believe they're making this.
Yeah. And it's in its third season.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, it's a Marvel show.
FX's ability to support TV shows is like crazy.
Yeah. I think the Marvelness of it all is the thing, actually.
That's a piece of it. They also, FX's international deals are they perform so well in other countries that it allows them to support shows that if they were catering only to the United States, they would just never be able to support from season to season.
Just like the old indie models, right? Look at that.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, so Sam, if we want to find out more about what you're doing,
well, you can
where
check
can we
out,
see your dance videos?
You can check out my tinkering around in the garage on Twitter and Instagram. Sam Reich spelled out both handles.
SAMREICH.
That's correct. And subscribe to Dropout. It's a week-long free trial. What have you got to lose?
Hey.
And that's just dropout.com?
That is dropout.tv.
Dropout.tv. Cool.
Perfect. Well, if you want to learn more about all the things that we talked about on the show, you can visit justshootitpod.com. We're on social media across the board at justshootitpod. And I'm at Mr. Madeline.
And I'm on Instagram at okaplan. And if you want to email us at justshootitpod@gmail.com. This episode was edited by Jay McAuliffe, produced by Madeline Rosewatt. Our webmaster is Ewan Williams. And the music you're listening to is from the Free Music Archive and the artist Jahzzar. Leave us an iTunes review. That would be awesome. We will catch you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.